Thank you, councillors, members of senior staff, the clergy, the press. A very warm welcome back to the Temora Shire Council chambers. I declare this November meeting of Temora Shire Council open and advise that this meeting is being recorded and will be placed on Temora Shire Council's webpage for public information. All present today are reminded that while speaking you are agreeing to your view and comments being recorded and published, and you're also reminded that if or when speaking that you are respectful to others and use appropriate language, as we do here at Temora Shire. Temora Shire Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures during this council meeting. So, and welcome you back to the Temora Shire Council chambers after several months in the supper room at the Temora Memorial Town Hall. It really is a joy to be back here, nearly as normal. So we do thank the General Manager, Directors and staff involved in ensuring that we're able to get back here in a COVID-safe manner. Now, let's proceed to our opening prayer, and we're delighted to have in the chamber a very good friend of Temora Shire Council, Pastor Patricia Morris. And Pastor Morris is well known to us, certainly involved in many organisations, and she's also the Secretary of the Temora Christian Leaders Group. So, Pastor Morris, a warm welcome, and we'd ask you to come over to the table, please, and speak into the microphone and deliver us our opening prayer. Thank you.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, gracious God, we thank you, Father, for this region, our country, and for the freedom we have to meet and pray openly. We pray for our school community, teachers and students as they come toward the end of what has been a challenging school year, especially for those students who have completed their schooling and are preparing for their next season of life, that the students would have peace and clarity of mind. We pray also for those who have lost loved ones recently and are grieving that loss. Bring them peace and comfort at this time. We thank you for our beautiful spring weather, but continue to pray for our farmers and their families, especially at this time of harvest, along with all our business community, that they would have strength and support as they navigate these challenging and changing times. We thank you that our community is kept safe during this time and that the community have been wise in taking care to do the right thing. Thank you for our council staff and for everyone who works together to make this such a great community, for our emergency service workers, our healthcare workers, our community volunteers, and all who together help to make our region a wonderful place in which to live. We thank you for our councillors and for their service to our region, especially during this challenging year. And we thank you for all those who are prepared to give up their time to serve. And Father God, we ask you for your blessing upon this meeting today, that you give the wisdom and guidance needed to make wise decisions on behalf of our community. And we pray all this in the name of our Lord and Saviour, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. It's a great way to start our meeting, and particularly back here in the chamber. Thank you very much. And you are most welcome to stay. Councillors, we move on now to apologies, and we do have apologies from Councillor McLaren and Councillor Winky, and also we have apologies from the Director of Environmental Services. Further apologies? If not, Councillor Smith, you're moving the adoption. Councillor Oliver moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, do you have any pecuniary interests or otherwise to declare at this time? Councillor Judd?
Two letters in correspondence, I think at least, and one in the, no, it might be three letters in correspondence. But
Thanks.
I'll declare it later again.
Thanks, Councillor Judd. Councillor, just a reminder, yes, it's going to take a bit of time for us to get used to our microphones, but just remember, please, when you wish to speak, click the button on the right and you'll be good as gold. Councillor Slay. Ah,
I would also bring one up later.
thank you. No further declarations at this point. We have public presentations, but understand that we'll have that at around 4:30. That will be our auditors at Crow. That is the company, and they will present the financial statements then. So let's now proceed to confirmation of the minutes of our October meeting of Temora Shire Council. Is someone that was present care to move that they be received as true and correct, please? Councillor Slay, Councillor Smith moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Matters arising, Mr. General Manager?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillors, now let's go to the mayoral minute. You should have a loose leaf page on your desks. Councillors will recall the General Manager and I attended the annual Cootamundra Electorate Mayoral Summit held last Friday. This important gathering held at Hardin's Rural Fire Service headquarters was very well attended, with 8 of the 9 mayors and all the general managers in attendance. The summit was hosted by our New South Wales member for Cootamundra, Ms Steph Cook MP, with several senior state government ministers answering our questions via Zoom video conferencing. The significant news to come from this summit included the Deputy Premier announcing round 4 of the Stronger Country Communities Fund, and that fund will be of $100 million. The New South Wales Minister for Regional Transport and Roads, the Honourable Paul Toole, reported that the Roads Maintenance Council contract, the RMCC, will not be changing. Minister Toole suggested there were totally false rumours being circulated in this space and assured councils that RMCC contracts would remain as per current arrangements. This is consistent with the advice the Minister gave us when the General Manager and I met with him in Sydney earlier this year. But I would add, councillors, that we do need to keep our eyes closely on that particular issue, and I certainly know that our Technical Engineering Manager would support those remarks. Further, the New South Wales Minister for Local Government, the Honourable Shelley Hancock MP, advised that suggested compulsory postal voting would be seriously considered. Well, as you've found out, that now they're going to have the universal voting at this point, which is good news. The General Manager and I believe this to be the best mayoral summit that we have attended, hosted by Ms Cook. And there's a recommendation there, councillors, that we do thank Ms Cook and her staff for hosting that summit. Pardon me. I advise Council that the General Manager and I have held in-depth discussions with our State Member for Cootamundra, Ms Cook, regarding the current Temora District Hospital building. As many of you are aware, the current structure was built in the early 30s and will need to be replaced someday soon. The current hospital, whilst a solid building, is most inadequate in terms of its current size. To be frank, we have outgrown it, not only for patient maternity care, but also for allied health service provision. Our current hospital means a great deal to us all. However, as a growing Shire community, we need to prepare for the now and for the future. And as a result, Ms Cook, the General Manager, and I have informally held discussions with the Health Minister for New South Wales, the Honourable Brad Hazzard MP, advocating for a new Temora District Hospital. And councillors, the recommendation there for you to consider that Temora Shire Council write a strong letter of support to both our State Member for Cootamundra and the New South Wales Health Minister for the in principle support of building a new hospital for our citizens and neighbouring communities, and further that we seek a meeting with both Ms Cook and Minister Hazzard at Parliament House advocating for the same. Number 3, Council may be aware of the current campaign called Save Our Voices. This crucial campaign is highlighting how important our rural and regional newspapers, television, radio stations are to us for many and varied reasons. It is essential that we, as a Shire Council and a community, send a strong message to our federal government to ensure these vital forms of communication are able to prosper and thrive. We must play our part to protect and strengthen our rural and regional media by supporting the Save Our Voices campaign. The current regulations, as I understand it, are deemed archaic as they restrict ownership and are deemed well past their use-by date by the sector. The campaign has recruited well-respected media personality Mr Ray Martin to publicly advocate for them. I'm certain none of us wish to imagine our Shire community without a local regional newspaper, radio stations and television. To this end, I encourage Council to support this important campaign. Councillors, there is a recommendation there that Council writes to our federal member for Riverina, Mr McCormack, to strongly support our rural and regional media outlets, and further that any appropriate measure or measures the federal government can legislate to ensure a strong, genuine and certain media presence in the bush be implemented. Number 4, Council may be aware of the well-respected Aboriginal elder Auntie Isabel Reid, who was recently awarded the New South Wales Senior Australian of the Year. Mrs Reid has been a solid advocate for the Aboriginal community and has earned respect from across the Riverina and now New South Wales. I place on record our warm congratulations to Mrs Reid on the honour thus conferred. We wish her much success at the upcoming Australian of the Year Awards in Canberra. There's a recommendation, councillors, that Temora Shire Council writes a letter of congratulations to Auntie Isabel on being announced as the New South Wales Senior Australian of the Year. And of course, most of you would be aware that Mrs Reid hails from Wagga Wagga. And finally, Council will be delighted to learn of our local government New South Wales President, Councillor Linda Scott, being elected as our Australian Local Government Association's President. Councillor Scott was appointed unopposed to this important role, which is testament to the high regard she has held in across the state and our nation. On behalf of Council and our community, our very warm congratulations are extended to Councillor Scott on her well-earned election. And there's a recommendation there that we write a warm letter of congratulations to our new National President, Councillor Scott. Councillors, there is a recommendation there on the bottom that we adopt the recommendations as presented and the remainder of the mayoral minute be noted. So I will move that way, councillors. Is there a second to Councillor Oliver? Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? No further discussion. Excuse me. Actually, just in discussion, Councillor Slay, in relation to the hospital. Now, I know you certainly, in your time, were, as chairman of our hospital, was advocating for a new hospital someday soon. This seems to have been elevated in terms of its importance, which is nice to hear. Do you recall, Councillor Slay, the actual year? The only advice we've had is that it was built in the early 30s. Have you got any further advice on that, or Councillor Slay?
No, I don't, but I think Councillor Smith might have a better idea than I would.
Thank you. Councillor Smith?
I thought it was in the vicinity of about 38.
Right.
Because I was part of the job of pulling the old hospital down up near the NRCC workshop up there many years ago.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's just something we need to clarify. So thank you very much for that. Any further discussion on the minutes? Councillor Slay. Yep, thank you.
Just one question, Mr Mayor. Will Councillor Scott remain the New South Wales President until?
Until the end of the current
right,
term.
until the next annual general meeting.
So my understanding, Mr General Manager, is that the current state president, that her term will continue until, is it next year?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So she's going to be a very busy president, that's for sure. But it was terrific that I actually rang her on the night of the election last Friday, and she was out celebrating with her husband and her 2 children at a Chinese restaurant in Sydney, and just a very quietly proud individual. So that's terrific. So there's no further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillors, let's now proceed to your business paper. And we have on page 11, we have the minutes of the Access and Equity Committee meeting. And, well, Councillor McLaren's apology. So would someone be prepared to move that report be received? Councillor Reinhardt, Councillor Oliver, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillors, would anybody like to comment on the report and the recommendations? I know there's a couple of further reports in the business paper for you to consider. If not, is someone prepared to move the report and its recommendations? Councillor Slay, Councillor Oliver, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. There was just an alteration on page 92, which I did talk to the Director of Administration and Finance about, number 3, where it just had this fund, pardon me, to be presented to Council for adoption and therefore also carried over to the recommendation. We're changing that to consideration. Thank you very much. Councillors, let's now move to the Assets and Operations Committee report on page 98. I was the chairman due to Councillor Winkie on harvest duties, and certainly, certainly very, very busy, some meaty issues to discuss, and someone prepared to move that the report's received. Thank you, Councillor Judd. The Deputy Mayor moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. So, councillors, there is a report there and recommendations for you to consider, noting that on page 180, 3.8, that matter was referred to council to consider. Due to, we had some apologies, which obviously we have some, this time of the year is always going to be challenging with harvest. So we might go to 3.8, councillors, the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator consent to drought recovery initiatives. I wonder if the Engineering Technical Manager has anything that he'd like to add to the report.
Not at this stage. Happy to answer. Not at this stage. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillors, you have a report there in front of you. There is advice in the main that we refuse the request. The manager?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just one update. I did meet with this particular group after the Assets and Operations Committee meeting on the Wednesday, and I worked through some of the issues that I could see with this particular request, and really got some agreement around the priority roads. So the first part of the request, and I think that's covered. So the priority access to GrainCorp, basically agreed that without additional roads it was pointless, and we agreed to stick to the original, the existing path that we do. However, the Grain Harvest Management Scheme extension remains as is. However, I think there's a strong argument that we should just leave it as is, based on the fact that the reason we are signed up from the 1st of October to the 1st of March is to encourage the rural community and transport operators to transport this quite intensive product in the summer period where particularly sealed pavements are nice and strong. And I don't see it that it would be any great impost or I don't think there'd be any major resulting factor if we choose to continue on exactly as we are without changing it. I don't just think it provides a window of opportunity from the 1st of October to the 1st of March to move your grain, and outside of that, I get concerned that that the system may be abused.
So your advice to council now is that we reconfirm the status quo?
I think the report recommendations stand is my view, but I'm happy to listen to anybody else.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I tend to agree. Like, the harvest is well and truly over by the 1st of March. Even a wet harvest, usually we're finished by then. So, and that's what it was originally designed for, to help get the crop off and into storage quickly and so forth, and just that extra 5% bonus on loads does make a big difference as far as loading trucks in the paddock and so forth. These sort of reports, these couple of reports, sort of really affect one another. Like the next one, the one about the farm gate access, they sort of all work together. Like to have, especially when like road trains and so forth have got to have permits and so forth to operate on state roads and also on our local council roads. It's all very well of the state government or the RMS to say that give access to sites like GrainCorp and so forth, but those trucks have got to come off a farm normally, and usually, and most times they've got to be access a state road from a local road. It seems to me that they should be integrated somehow. That if it's only farmers that have direct access to a state road who have got an advantage over those who do not. So I really think we need to be sitting down and talking to perhaps some of the trucking companies that we have here locally and just see what really affects them, what their problems are. I've talked to one of them a couple of weeks ago, and he was trying to get permits and so forth. He had no problems with the councils that he was trying to get involved with, get permits through, but he was having trouble getting access into, particularly the one he brought up most was the one at Stock and Bingle, which was a AWB site. It's now been bought out by Manildra. Because there's no turn-off lane there, they were looking at refusing the access to turn into that site with a road train. And the reality is there's not much difference between a B-double and a road train, really. And then also that they're suggesting there was going to be a problem with them getting access over the rail lines because the New Holland have to, not New Holland, John Holland have to give them permits to cross those lines, and there's already road trains with permits that are going over those lines. So he said there's a lot of double standards and so forth involved in the whole thing. So I think it'd be ideal to sit after harvest and sit out and get some of these groups together and try and nut these things out and make some sort of sense that it all works together.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So are you thinking in relation to 3.8, are you thinking that we reconfirm the status quo and further that we seek out after harvest with Shire Transport companies and interested parties, stakeholders, to sit down and discuss the relevant issues.
Yes, Mr Mayor, yeah, I think it's, really put what the real issues are, and then we've got something to take to RMS and say, well, this are the issues we're having here, and no doubt the same issues we apply to other council areas, so, and try to work something out.
So would you like to move that direction in relation to 3.8?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll move the.
Thank you.
the
Seconder,
committee reg-
Councillor Oliver, moved and seconded. Discussion. The Director.
Or just the exact wording, just the exact wording of that resolution there.
So is that we reaffirm the status quo in relation to the GHMS approval timeframe, which is from the 1st of March to the 1st of October. Beg your pardon. Thank you. And further,
we seek meetings with transport operators in the area to get their thoughts on how all this farm gate access and
related issues.
how they affect them, how they think they could work better or something. Yeah.
Thank you. Has the Director captured that? Thank you. So can you just read that back to Council, please? It's been moved and seconded, and the motion is in relation to 3.8.
So reconfirm the status quo in relation to the GHMS approval timeframe, which is the 1st of October to the 1st of March, and further seek meetings with transport operators in the area to get their thoughts on farm gate access issues and how they affect them.
Thank you. So mover and seconder happy with that? Okay, Councillor Slade, discussion on the motion? No? Okay, thank you. So there's no further discussion. Councillor Oliver, discussion on the motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah. I think it's important to get all these transport operators and the authorities together, because nobody seems to know what's going on half the damn time, and we're all playing with a different set of rules by the sound of things, and they're all getting advice.
That's right.
Which is conflicting half the time. So
that's true,
I think it's
Councillor Oliver, and I.
Talk.
You're quite right, and I also think that, you know, how often are we seeing nowadays B doubles that are just strolling through the main street as well? Admittedly, when it's drawn to my attention that that's the case, but nonetheless, it is happening, and it's they're acting illegally is the bottom line. But anyway, so no further discussion on the motion. If not, I'll put that motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. And now, councillors, motion to receive the remaining recommendations, the report and recommendations for Assets and Operations Committee. Councillor Oliver, Councillor Slay, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much indeed, councillors. Now, councillors, I'd like to have a motion to set aside standing orders to hear the Auditor, Councillor Judd, Councillor Reinhold, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Now,
recording has started.
okay, thank you. Mr. Bowen, are you on channel from Crow?
I certainly am.
You are. A warm welcome to you, and on behalf of councillors and staff and our gallery. Thank you so much for giving your time to be with us and presenting our annual audited statements. So, Mr. Bowen, I will hand it over to you to present the report. Thank you. You hear me?
Thank you very much. So in terms of our outcome for the audit of Temora Shire Council, really pleasing to share that in a COVID environment, we've been able to achieve our desired outcome, which is an on-time lodgement of our financial statements with the Office of Local Government. So Council has lodged their financial statements dated the 10th of November with the audit opinion and achieved our desired outcome, which was a clean or unqualified audit opinion. So that's in keeping with our prior years where we've been on time and had unqualified audit opinions. And with the change in Director of Corporate Services, we've continued to uphold that really strong performance. So considering the change in various changes in circumstances, it's a really pleasing landing point for Council overall. Council receives two audit opinions from the Audit Office. One is a statutory opinion which simply says that financial statements are true and fair. And the second item is a conduct report. The conduct report includes some free-form text, and it's that report that we tend to focus on in this session around just helping councillors understand the final landing point from the audit process. So in addition to achieving unqualified audit opinions, the financial statements have a profit and loss inside them, and within that, the two main items that Council received in terms of revenue are rates and annual charges and grants and contributions. The rates and annual charges improved year on year by 3.7%, and you appreciate that the majority of that was the rate peg amount of 2.7. So after that, there was a small increase in the rateable properties per shire and some annual charges uplift. The grants and contributions revenue improved year on year. A large element of that improvement links to a particular project which was the aerodrome. So in the 1920 year, Council received an additional 1.4 million in capital grant funding regarding the aerodrome. From a overall result, the operating result of Council was positive, and so that in accounting language is referred to as a surplus, and that surplus was slightly improved on the prior year. In 2019, the surplus was 3.1 million, and for 2020 it was 5.4. And really encouraging for a rural shire is that even when the capital grant monies are taken away, Council continued to return a surplus above break even, which is a really encouraging result considering the challenging times that Council has had to navigate in the second half of 2020. In terms of Council's statement of cash flows, the primary statement there shows that Council generates positive cash from its operation by way of rates and charges and grants, and then it usually spends or invests that money in its infrastructure, property, plant and equipment by way of road renewal being one of the significant items annually that recurs. Council has a very low level of debt, only around 2 million, and so in terms of the cash flow statement, there's very low impact of financing activities for Council. On the topical items for councils at the moment, because of the media coverage given to some challenges for one of the coastal councils is around restrictions. And so Temora certainly runs a multi-fund council, and so it does have restriction activity. Our water is dealt with by Golden Field, but sewer activity is certainly something that resides with council, and so being able to do appropriate fund accounting is something that is a very real reality for us. Temora had internal restrictions of around 8.1 million and has unrestricted cash and improving balance this year of 500,000. So in total, Council has around 13.8 million of cash investments at 30 June, but a large majority of that is restricted for any grant purposes or sewer fund purposes, being 5.2 council has forward planned via its asset replacement reserve, its employee leave reserves, and its ongoing works program of 8.1 million. So that indicates that there's a remaining small portion available for the discretionary spending of council on a day-to-day basis.
So what's, Mr Bowen, your view in relation to unrestricted reserves? Do you think that's something that we need to continue to work on in terms of building up?
Oh, certainly, Mr Mayor. I think the key there is making sure that council stays true to the long-term financial plan. So effort certainly goes into that from a council perspective about mapping out what the timely and progressive improvement of assets is, consistent with the mapping of your unrestricted funds. And so council needs to make sure that all decisions taken in terms of discretionary spending, before the spend is made, there's a check done of the long-term financial plan and council's holdings of unrestricted cash to make sure that that spend is consistent with that.
Thank you.
And then council, we stepped through a range of performance ratios, and it's really pleasing. Temora, compared to its peers, performs strongly in this area. The operating performance ratio is above zero, and for a rural council, that's a very positive outcome considering the economic climate. So council performs strongly there. The own source operating ratio is always a stretch. Council's got closer than ever to the elusive benchmark of 60, understanding that the benchmark of 60 there relates to all 128 councils. And in the absence of user-paid facilities being something that's not heavily seen inside Temora, achieving 60 is quite a challenge when council's main purpose is to continue to attract grant funding for the benefit of ratepayers. So what we would say is council needs to continue its effort in attracting grants to achieve a surplus result, and acknowledging that that will mean you're always slightly under the own source operating ratio. Council holds a very solid financial position. You have something in the order of $3.20 of current unrestricted assets for every $1 of current liabilities. So in terms of one hand giveth, the other hand take away, we've got $2.20 more in our hand. So that indicates that council has the ability to pay its debts as and when they fall due, which is the position we've had previously, and it's continuing to strengthen year on year. Rates and annual charges is something that Temora has always performed strongly in and continues to, even in a COVID environment. The efforts of both council's collection of efforts and ratepayers' willingness to pay their rates and annual charges has continued to mean we report a result of around 4%, which is just exemplary across the state. And councils continued in the year to invest $5.5 million in renewal of assets, which was down slightly from the 5.9 in the prior year, but I think we all agree that's a really strong investment in maintaining the asset network that council has for its ratepayers. We observed no instances of legislative non-compliance, and so that resulted in Nathan Carter signing the audit opinion on behalf of the Auditor General for Temora for the 2020 year.
Very good. Now, Mr Bowen, before I go to councillors for comments or questions, we would like a warts and all judgment from you in relation to our new Director of Administration Finance and her team. How did they perform?
Which is very tricky without being able to see her face.
It's got a slight shade of pink.
Auditors don't usually say too much, Paul. She's very, I mean, she operated under the safe tutelage of Steve for a long time, but considering the change this year and the overlay of COVID where the audit was executed remotely, as auditors we became particularly anxious about several items that didn't receive at the same level of audit focus in the past. We have nothing but praise for Elizabeth's efforts. So we think it was a great first year and we look forward to working with her again into the future.
No, thank you very much. We're very proud of her and her team, I might add. Councillors, comments or questions in relation to what is frankly, a top grade report. Councillor Judd?
Councillor Judd, question Mr Carter. Just on, I think, the second page of your independent auditors report, the council's responsibility for the financial statements, could you just enlarge on that a bit? Just exactly what we're supposed to be doing?
Yes, this is, and it's very topical considering the central host activities currently. The council boards, as those charged with governance for council, actually have a very high and strong responsibility for the financial reporting of council. Historically, I don't think that has been that well understood across councils, especially councils in New South Wales. And this is where the governance is improving in terms of helping you be comfortable with these processes. So what's coming into play across New South Wales local government is both an audit risk improvement committee and an internal audit function, which is aligned to be mandatory from the next round of elections in New South Wales. And those two elements combined are both directed at helping provide councillors with comfort that the internal control environment and the framework is such that you know the systems and processes are generating a reliable result. If we come back to the earlier comment just before, you're currently blessed with very capable people, but it's also assuring to know that rolling forward, not only are we relying on good people, that we've got good systems and processes supporting those outcomes as well. Such that if the people were to change, we can also place reliance on those other more automated things that are helping council take the responsibility that's been more explicitly understood moving forward, as where before my feel would be that I think that's been an implied understanding that not all councillors have necessarily appreciated that the reporting for financial prudency and compliance with accounting standards rests with those charged with governance, which is the councillors. The person that's helping execute that for you is the Director of Corporate Services. I'm providing assurance that it does comply, but the responsibility for compliance rests with councillors.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I will now go to the Director of Administration Finance if the Director wishes to make any remarks in relation to the statements.
No, I was just very impressed with the result. Very strong result given the year, I suppose. We had a massive capital works program which kept everyone busy. And yeah, the audit went very smoothly. Happy to receive your report, Brad.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Bowen, for complimenting our ratepayers as well. We're obviously very proud of each and every one of them. And again, even through very tough times of drought, that they have still managed in the main to meet their commitments. And we're very, very grateful to them and very proud of them. So thank you for acknowledging that. Councillors, any other comments or questions? If not, thank you very much again, Mr. Bowen. We look forward to catching up with you again very soon.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillors, someone please move that we proceed out, that resume standing orders. Thank you, Councillor Slay. Councillor Reinhold moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Whoops. Sorry. Oh, what did I do? Whoops. Is that right? Looks like a spaceship. Thank you. Councillors, let's now proceed to delegates' reports. Do we have any delegates' reports, please? Councillor Smith.
Springdale Hall committee meeting Sunday. Sorry.
Oh, yes, sorry. I should have prompted you. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, Springdale Hall committee meeting Sunday. there's a little bit of fear out there about the amount of grass in the village and also around the hall. You know, all around the whole area, they're a bit fire conscious. And I think they were going to get the council and see if they could get something done. They needs a bit of mowing and a bit of other stuff out there. Other than that, I think it went over reasonably well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Yes, you're quite right. I think not only Springdale residents, but I'm not sure about Area Park residents, but certainly Temora residents. I know council's had a lot of people expressing concern, but I understand that the Ranger is on top of that. Madam Acting Director. Further, Councillor Smith?
And we also were at the Royal Museum meeting.
Yes.
Went off reasonably well. They're doing plans for their next year's open day. And if it'll go ahead. But same sort of deal. Same sort of deal. They just roll along and they just do what has to be done, and they're a great mob.
You're
Thank
right
you.
there. Thank you, Councillor Smith. It was just so lovely to see in the paper too the tribute to Mr. and Mrs. the late Mr. and Mrs. Ron Maslin, Freedom of the Shire recipients of Temora Shire, and an article in the paper. That was lovely, and of course Mr. Maslin being a former long-serving president of the Royal Museum. Thank you very much. Further delegates' reports. Councillor Slay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I attended the student leaders, as did Councillor Smith and of course yourself. Student leaders celebration at the end of the year. I've attended quite a number of those in the past few years, but I'd have to say this one was exceptionally well structured. It allowed the young people a very, very good opportunity to interrogate our local member. And she, of course, responded very, very well. But I just felt that the amount of sharing that went on that occasion was particularly valuable. So top marks to the Student Leaders Program.
Thank you.
Also, my first meeting of the Internal Audit Committee as a member of the committee, and I continue to sort of be mind blown by what goes on. I'm never quite sure what's happening next, but I'm gradually learning. It certainly is a very busy committee. And finally, we've also had, as was intimated at our last meeting, we've had two meetings already about the Pinnacle Review, and I think we're making some progress there. It's been very, very good. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be involved in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slay. Still busy. We're still busy, aren't we, councillors, regardless of COVID? Councillor Oliver?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just that Councillor Smith and I had the honour of laying the wreath on Remembrance Day. Always a moving ceremony, and a little bit different this year with COVID, of course, but nonetheless all very important. So that was about me.
No.
All for me, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Oliver and Councillor Smith, for doing that. I just regret not being able to have been part of that this year, but again, that gives others opportunity as well, and so I thank you very much for representing council and our community at that ceremony. Pardon me. Further delegates' reports. Councillor Reinhold.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, on the 28th of October, I represented the Women's Network Group, along with yourself and Steph Cook, and presented the certificates to our 3 Hidden Treasures recipients. It was a lovely morning tea, and I think everyone was quite thrilled with how it went. Also, TBEG have got a new executive officer, Roxanne Hiskett, I think it is. She seems very efficient and, yeah, will help TBEG move along. Just a little plug for the Christmas fair, which is Friday the 11th of December. We've got Spotto happening again, Shop Local and Win, and we're going to have a Christmas window competition. Also, Imagine, I think you'll see a little flyer in your papers today for Creative Christmas, just trying to get the Christmas spirit happening, decorating a tree or something creative in your front yard with the Christmas theme. And thank you for Council for donating the prize money. That's me, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reinhold, and I do think on behalf of your colleagues, we do want to warmly thank you for your outstanding efforts in relation to the hidden treasures. Now, to have one get up is a very special honour indeed, but to have 3 from the One Shire community is something extra special. And Councillor Reinhold, I know you are the driving force behind it. To be frank, you made it happen. You put in outstanding submissions, and they were successful. And I couldn't be more pleased that Mrs. Elsa Sinclair, Mrs. Ruth Fritsch, and Mrs. Pat Thomas, we couldn't be more pleased for the 3 of them being honoured by our state. So again, thank you for your work behind the scenes in making that happen. Thank you very much. Further delegates' reports, the Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Perhaps I should be have non-pecuniary interest in that last report too.
Very proud son, yes.
Attended the Temora Art Prize some time ago now, which was ably run by our manager of community services. It was an excellent show. It keeps growing each year. There was 280 something, I think, pieces of art, which is once again a record. Probably got something to do with COVID, I suppose. People had plenty of time on their hand to. So those who got the artistic skills went painting and so forth. So not up my alley, I'm afraid. But no, it was very well done and very well supported by local businesses. That's something that really stood out. I think there was several local businesses who really did support, put reasonable sums of money towards the prize, and it's really starting to become probably a well sought after competition to go in, I think, and went well. Also attended the new residents' dinner along with several other councillors, and once again that was well done on the night. It's interesting to listen to the stories of new residents, where they come from, the stories behind moving to Temora. They're all different, but they all bring something to our area too, so it was, I think it was very important actually. That's about it, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor, and you're spot on, particularly in all what you said, but particularly the latter, the new residents' dinner. It is very special, and there were so many that couldn't attend this year, but there were obviously, those that couldn't, and we're grateful for that. But our community and cultural service officer certainly, she loves doing the work for that event, and she does it very, very well. Thank you. Mr Deputy Mayor, did you wish to, I know I chaired the last Australia Council meeting, but did you want to mention about the awards and the ambassador, or? Oh, right. You wanted me to do that? Right, okay. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillors, just in relation to Australia Day, I, as the Deputy Chairman of that committee, chaired it for the Deputy Mayor, who's the Chairman, and we had a very good meeting. It's sort of, obviously we're still full steam ahead with our plans for a Gloucester Park ceremony. We think it obviously will be a scaled down version, so we will discuss the program, more condensed program, more carefully early next month. However, the committee resolved to have and appoint a local Shire resident as our ambassador, instead of having them come from larger cities, etc. of note. And the Australia Council have invited World War II veteran, former area park farmer, resident, and now Temora resident, Mr Bill Harris, I certainly know Councillor Judd is a very close family friend of the Harrises, so we are tickled pink that Mr Harris has agreed to act in that role, and he's asked for more of an interview style, so we'll have to discuss that, but he will be amazing. I think Councillor Judd is 96. Absolutely amazing, and just one of the many special people that we could have asked, but it's Mr Harris's turn this year. So in terms of nominations, I think Mr Deputy Mayor, you would be happy considering the COVID year with the nominations.
Yeah, I guess so. Probably down on previous year.
Yep. Yep, but all outstanding nominees. And again, those people that take the time to think and to compile. So our warm congratulations to all those that have been nominated, and we look forward to honouring them, all of them, on Tuesday the 26th of January. Pardon me. Council, just further, we have the General Manager and I, as you know, we went to the Country Mayor's annual general meeting, and we have a new chairman, which is the Mayor of Parkes, Councillor Ken Keith. And to be elected unopposed certainly speaks volumes of Mayor Keith, and so we warmly congratulate him. And the REROC executive have a meeting tomorrow, executive meeting rather, at 2 o'clock tomorrow, and the Riverina JO board and the REROC boards will next meet on Friday the 11th of December, and we will have to elect our chairman and the deputy chairman on that day because we inadvertently forgot to do it last month. So that will be held then. So no further delegates' reports. If not, then let's proceed to page 199, the Mayor's report for the month of October, and there's a recommendation, councillors, that the report be noted. Thank you, Councillor Slay. Seconder for the motion. Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillor, just something that I would like to draw to your attention before I receive a motion of staff reports. A couple of little birdies has shared with me something that we feel is appropriate to mention in this chamber, and that is one of our colleagues, Councillor Claire McLaren. As you'd be aware, she has been working hard behind the scenes in relation to completing a Bachelor of Law degree, and as I understand it, for semester 2, Councillor McLaren has earned 2 high distinctions. Now, one of those birds Councillor Slay happens to know very well, and I do thank Councillor Slay for drawing this to Council's attention. And that brings the total results, as I understand it, Councillor Slay, so far for the 8 subjects completed by Councillor McLaren, 3 distinctions and 5 high distinctions. So I'd have to say, talking to Councillor Slay earlier, that it is an outstanding achievement, and we congratulate Councillor Slay on behalf of all of us at Council and the Temora. What did I say? I beg your pardon. You've achieved many great things too, but sorry, I beg your pardon. Councillor McLaren, we do warmly congratulate her on that achievement. And Councillor Slay, did you have anything you'd like to add?
I'm sorry that Councillor McLaren couldn't be here this afternoon to hear these words, because I think it is indeed an incredible performance. I know when I was lecturing at uni, I used to say to my students, start off with P's for passes, get your credits, and if towards the end you get a distinction or a high distinction, it looks good on your application. I gave similar advice to Claire, as I'm prone to. She has ignored it totally. She can't get any better. But now, for the rest of her course. I just hope she is able to do it as well as she has on this occasion. But it is a phenomenal effort, and particularly given nobody's had a good year this year, and I think it'd be fair to say that Claire's had some particular upsets, and yet despite that, she's able to put this into one of her side interests is her study. She's got so many other interests, and yet she's been able to do so well. So I think that we all really do need to congratulate Claire. I spoke with the alleged bird this morning, and I said, well, Claire has threatened homicidal tendencies towards this little bird, but I will protect her because as my wife, I think she deserves protection. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor Sloan, for drawing, because, certainly we were not going to hear about it from individual concern, but anyway, we thank you for sharing that. Now, councillors, let's now please have a motion to receive staff reports. Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. Councillor Oliver, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillors, let's go over to page 204, the General Manager's report, the calendar of events.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, you'll see there the calendar of events for November, December. But interestingly, just a couple of I do want to point out to you there. The first one is on Monday is the Local Government New South Wales virtual conference. The face-to-face conference has been canned for this year, but there is a virtual conference occurring on Monday. Also, the following weekend out at Area Park, the Coolman Street upgrade. That's a really big day for Area Park, and our local member and Deputy Prime Minister, and I understand also our local state member will be there. So
yes, we'll be both of them will be there.
It's a big day. And the other one, probably more so for the younger ones, but the opening of the water slide on the 12th will be another big day, and I think there's certainly a whole heap of kids waiting for that to occur. So that's the calendar of events. Someone moved that it be noted.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. The state member, of course, will be opening the water slide. I cannot get over how much keen interest there is. It's absolutely astounding. It really and truly is. Councillor, so you'll move the calendar events be noted. Thank you. Second, Councillor Oliver. Moved and seconded. Further discussion. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I took a busload of kids past that water slide the other day coming back from Nixon Park when they'd just completed their athletics carnival, and the scream in the bus was absolutely deafening. I can tell you they are looking forward so much to this. So I'm sure it'll get a hell of a hiding in the first couple of weeks anyway, at least.
No, you're spot on. Thank you, Councillor Oliver. And Councillor, just getting back to the opening in discussion on the motion at Coolman Street Area Park, Councillor Judd, he'll be act as the Master of Ceremonies for the ceremony, and I think there's a bit of a light luncheon that is organised with council staff. And I know the Deputy Prime Minister and the State Member for Cootamundra are very, very much looking forward to being out there and reflecting on an outstanding street. I only saw it myself a few weeks ago, and it does look, I was sceptical about the grass, but it just looks really, really great. Councillor Judd, you have things all in order for that occasion?
Oh, as much as I can, it's not real good timing as far as harvest goes, but no doubt we'll probably, if it's fine weather, we'll have heavy trucks rolling through the main street, but anyway, yeah, I think it'll go okay.
Yeah, thank you. It's a bit of a coup, Councillor Judd, to have both as federal and state member and the Deputy PM there.
Yeah. That'd be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, no further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. On the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Over to page 205, 10.2, the Code of Conduct, the General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the Code of Conduct that went out for public submission. There were no submissions received, so the recommendation is that it be adopted.
Thank you. Councillors, there's a recommendation there for your consideration. Councillor Slay, Councillor Oliver, move and second the recommendation, that is that the model code of conduct be adopted. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Anything of a urgent, late nature, Mr. General Manager?
Yeah, there's an issue I would like to raise, Mr. Mayor. It's came from the Director of Environmental Services, who is on holidays at the moment, but it's relating to the Christmas decorations and the fact that we tried, well, it was taken out of our budget, but we tried to talk Essential Energy into allowing us to put from pole to pole lighting so that it looked quite festive. That was rejected out of hand, so he's been discussing it with a local electrician as to how we can still achieve a reasonable effect, you know, within the main street. And one of the ideas that's come forward from the electrician is to undertake a trial where you've got the Christmas tree in the centre of the block up here, the 4 trees on the corner, to actually light them up in a similar festoon type effect. It would stay there, it wouldn't be taken down once it's up. The pricing for it is $400 per tree. It's more of a trial to see that it gives the effect we want to do, and then if it's successful, then it would be put in the budget to roll out throughout the whole main street in the next financial year. But there isn't a budget there at the moment, and Chris has asked whether council may consider putting aside $1,600 this year just to trial that for this Christmas.
Thank you. And they would, the trial for Christmas, but ultimately you'd like it to be there indefinitely in those 4 trees?
Yes, it will stay there continuously. So you'll get the effect, and particularly during the winter, because it can look pretty glum and everything and very early dark, it'd light up a lot quicker. The good news is that it is solar, so there's no ongoing cost for electricity and all the rest of it, but they're quite expensive comparatively to other LED devices, because they are a commercial device, not a Bunnings special, basically. But it's as I said, the estimate from the electrician is $400 to put them up and purchase the equipment and put them up.
Thank you. The Director of Administration and Finance, in terms of what is that, about $1,600? Where would you think, if council wanted to go down that path of a trial, where would you think that would come from, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we could just fund that through a maintenance budget, so yeah, it's pretty insignificant, really. Yeah.
Thank you. I know Councillor Reinhold's eyes are lighting up like Christmas lights. Councillor Reinhold.
I think that's a great idea, because not only for Christmas, we can use it for other things too. So, and then don't have the labour costs of taking them up and down, and so I'm all for it. Thank you very much. Move that way.
Thank you. So, Councillor Reinhold, you're moving that we go with the trial of those Christmas lights on the 4 trees on the corner of the Hoskins Loftus Street intersection. Thank you. Seconded for the motion, the Deputy Mayor, moved and seconded. So if I suggested to Councillor Reinhold, just in discussion, that these fantastic LED lights that are lighting up the main street, that's should be sufficient, what would your response be? No. Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? If not, I will put that motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much. So nothing further of an urgent, late, festive nature?
No, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillors, over to page 206. the Engineering Services Report, 11.1, a very, very important engineering report. The Engineering Team Movember Appeal, and that is in the hands of the Engineering Technical Manager.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This report slipped through my fingers. I didn't know it was going into the council papers. Certainly not my doing this Movember challenge. However, I've been roped into participating, and yeah, it is a good cause. And at the moment, we're smashing Goldenfield, so everything's going well.
Is that in terms of money
Both.
or is it
Both.
right? Okay. Is in progress of the moustache growing and the money, right? Thank you, Mr. Manager.
I think I think so far we've nearly raised nearly close to $3,000. So
That's excellent. That's excellent. The General Manager, notice you're not there.
No, Mr Mayor, no, I don't go very well on beard growing, but look, the group's to be commended on this. I was just going to mention that we do have a fund which is allocated annually for staff campaigns and things like this. It relates to things like sporting events where, say, council put in a team in the local golf competition or something like that. The shirts might come out of that pool. It's a small pool. I think it's $1,000 a year or something like that. But nonetheless, it's sort of this would be an appropriate use of that, given it's supporting staff doing something good.
Do you want to spend all of it, but part of it, yeah.
Whatever council decides, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. In your hands, we do commend our brave souls. We really do, for standing up for men's health issues, and it is an important campaign for many and varied reasons, and I'm sure council would like to support that in some way. Councillor Oliver?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that we donate $500 out of that $1,000 and keep the other $500 up our sleeve just in case there's another very important
Campaign.
donation we should make. So,
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Judd. Moved and seconded that we donate $500 from the previously mentioned fund to support the Temora Shire Council's team in relation to the Movember campaign. Is there further discussion? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I just think any money raised goes a long way to helping people that are in desperate need. Some are not so desperate, but some of them get into a really desperate need. And I just congratulate all the team for covering their face. I was a face coverer many years ago, but it had to be taken off. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. And I know health issues are very important to you, that's for sure. Now, we go to the Engineering Technical Manager.
yeah, I'd prefer to say this in confidential. However, I don't think it's appropriate. You might hold that 500. Back. We want to be a little bit like Lonro down the straight. If Goldenfields get close money-wise, then we unleash.
Well, I'm sure that council will consider any further requests. That's for sure, and the competition's good and healthy. Yeah, the Deputy Mayor didn't hear that as a member of the board. Councillors, you have a motion there that we do support this great Movember campaign for the Temora Shire Council staff at $500. There's no further discussion. Councillor Oliver?
I was thinking of moving an amendment after those comments.
I think they'll be very grateful. So while I put the motion to you, councillors, all those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried unanimously. Thank you, and again, all the very best to the manager and his team. The General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. And look, thank you, councillors, because I'm sure the team will really appreciate the fact that that council supported them. So thanks once again.
Thank you. Now, Are there any more other important reports of an urgent late nature from the engineering team? No? Thank you. Let's now go to page 207, the Environmental Services Department report. 12.1, a development application be considered for subdivision Temora Air Park Estate, and delighted to have in the chamber the acting Director of Environmental Services, who's the town planner, Mrs. Claire Golder, who will be sitting in the chair. So the acting director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report relates to the proposed subdivision for the next stage of the Air Park estate. It was assessed independently, given that council is the applicant and landowner, but there's a recommendation there for council's consideration.
Thank you, Madam Acting Director. It's a very thorough report they put us through the rigour, but as it should be, as it should be. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'd be only too pleased for the recommendation to go ahead.
Thank you. So you'll move that direction. Is there a second for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Slay. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Yes, we will, when I put the motion, that we'll ask you for a show of hands before or against, so that can be recorded, please. So further discussion? If not, just a question to the acting director. The company, I'm unfamiliar with this company, Madam Acting Director. Can you explain who and where this company come from?
So the company's name is DA Busters. So Mr. Craig Filmer, he's previously of Young Shire Council and now has his own independent consultancy. We have been aware of his business for many years as he's attended many of our Riverina Group conferences.
Thank you very much. Well, councillors, if there's no further discussion, it's been moved and seconded. I will put the motion, and I would ask you, all those of that opinion, please raise your hands. So the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, councillors, we now proceed over to page 247, 12.2, the Federal Government's Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Fund extension, and I defer to the Acting Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report gives the outcomes of Council's recent workshop, where there was a number of potential projects considered by Council, and Council was asked to nominate projects within the figure that we have been advised for the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Fund. As the Director of Administration and Finance will be aware, we have not yet received the final guidelines for this, but in this way Council is ahead of the game in that we've already nominated our projects, and as soon as those final guidelines are released, we'll be able to nominate those projects and get them assessed straight away.
Thank you very much, Madam Director. Just in relation to the timeline, I've forgotten the timeline in relation to these.
Again, still yet to be confirmed
So
by the
that's in the
federal
guidelines,
government. That will
right.
be in the guidelines.
Okay, but hopefully it's not going to be, within the next few months. Director of Admin and Finance.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I did contact the department, and they did say it would be guidelines would be released shortly.
Shortly.
So no definition around that.
Yeah, no, that's, well, they're consistent, so yeah, thank you. Councillors, and well done again to all those that were able to attend the workshop that have those projects there before you. Councillor Oliver. So Councillor Oliver is moving the recommendations. Is there a second for the motion? The Deputy Mayor. Moved and seconded. Further discussion. Councillor Smith.
You know, I was down Campbell's Lane the other day and it has some pretty big holes in it, I tell you.
Yeah. I'd reckon. Thanks, Councillor Smith. I know you've been an advocate for that road for quite a spell. Well, councillors, I think it's a fairly good spread of roads and other, solar panels, the area park pool landscaping and the toddler pool. There's a fairly good mix there. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillor, over to page 248, 12.3, Developer Contributions Plan for 2020, the Acting Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this report follows on from a previous report where Council placed the draft Developer Contributions Plan 2020 on public exhibition. So we did receive no submissions on that, but given that it is a change in the amount of contributions that Council would be collecting, we are proposing that it not commence until Council commences its next lot of fees and charges from the 1st of July 2021, but for Council's decision.
Thank you very much. Councillors, your views in relation to the Acting Director's report? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. It keeps everything in line then and gives gets people time to get their head around the extra costs and so forth involved.
Did you have your hand up? No. Thanks,
I'll,
Mr Deputy Mayor.
I'll move the recommendation.
So you'll move the recommendation listed on page 249 that we adopt the Temora Shire Developer Contributions Plan for 2020 as exhibited, and secondly apply the Temora Shire Development Contributions Plan 2020 from the 1st of July 2021. Seconder for the motion, Councillor Reinhold. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is further discussion? I think to the Acting Director, these are still, what's before us, are still modest levies as I understand it comparatively. The Director?
Yes, we do try to keep our fees modest, but we do have to balance Council being financially sustainable into the future.
Thank you very much. Well, it's been moved and seconded, councillors. I'll now put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much indeed. Councillors, again in the busy department, environmental department, page 260, 12.4, proposed pop-up shop Lakes and Tenery, the Acting Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this report was as a result of some correspondence, an email correspondence that we received, making inquiry to see if Council would be willing to consider an ancillary land use in association with the current caravan, which offers the coffees there at the lake on Sundays and Wednesdays. So it is slightly unusual, but we are wanting to try to support our local businesses leading up to Christmas, and wanting to support if they would like to trial some new ideas in order to promote their business. But we felt that there would be a need to manage the area and the time so that it wouldn't impede on other people's ability to enjoy the lake, but therefore Council's consideration.
Thank you very much. Councillor Slay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The presence now, the established presence of sugar and spice has certainly proved to be very, very popular. Not merely popular in terms of a commercial venture, I'm hoping it's a successful one there, but the comments of people, and I've only gone out as an observer, I mean I wasn't trying to enjoy myself or anything, but the comments of other people who were enjoying themselves were very, very positive. from sugar and spice. I think the whole idea is great, and it was inevitable that something like this would be taken on board by our local residents, because it just seems to be a development without being an overdoing of a situation. It's a development of an ideal complex, an ideal situation in what is fundamentally a great place to go, but maybe not as exciting as it would be once we get this pop-up shop. So pop-up shop plus sugar and spice, I think we're on a winner here.
Thank you very much, Councillor Slay. Thank you. I now go to Councillor Smith.
Yeah, not yesterday, the week before Wednesday, we were out there. There was 25 cars at the lake with the coffee and sugar and spice thing. And what a beautiful venue. The council is to be congratulated for the way they maintain those grounds, and everybody said it that was there. No, not only Temora people, it was other people there. And I just think it's a really, really great thing.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. You are right. It's amazing amount of people that complement that beautiful facility. Of course, the Lakes and Tenerife Management Committee have done a great job, but also I think the Deputy Mayor attended a function recently, or an informal reunion of the original Lake Development Committee. And again, it's appropriate that we reflect on them. 40 years ago, their persistence, their vision, with the great support of the late Ted Leary, the former General Manager of Temora Shire, and Mayor Peter Spears and others, Council of the Day. We've got to make sure we thank them and acknowledge them too along the journey. Councillor Smith, are you on or off?
Oh, yeah, no, I was just going to say, for Temora's sake, build a lake. That's what the sticker was.
Oh, right. For Temora's sake, Bill. I didn't know that.
That was the sticker, and I think there's still a new sticker at home somewhere if I can find it.
I did not know that. That's great. Thank you. The Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, just to follow that the barbecue that the original group didn't go ahead on the night, it ended up being a storm.
That's right.
So it was cancelled, and they had the following Saturday, which I couldn't attend, so I didn't actually get there. So, yeah,
You were there in spirit.
something like that.
Thank you. Well, councillors, look, it is an initiative, and again, as a businessman, this, by the way, is not my store, but again, admire those for, during a tough year for everybody, particularly small business. You do admire it. I suppose, being devil's advocate, I was weighing this up, as I'm sure you all did, about what do we really want at Lakes and Tenerife. We've got the great markets that we now around here at Callaghan Park and so on, that happen every so often. So there was that going through my mind, but also then again, if you've got a business that is trying to think outside the box, what do you do? So it's not an easy one, councillors. I'm certainly aware of that. Anyway, it's up to council to determine what you'd like to do. So in your hands, the Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same way. It's good to see people are looking at other ways of making the business work better. At the same time, I don't think we want to get to the point where we've got something that's not getting out of hand out there. But I think providing a skep to local businesses, which is part of the recommendation, I think it's probably worth having a go at, so I'll move the recommendation. Yeah.
Thank you. So the Deputy Mayor's moved the recommendation. Is there a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Slay. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I quite like the idea, but as far as it getting out of hand, I don't know whether we should have some sort of a limit as to how many can be there, because if you're going to get a heap out there, there's going to be kids running here and there and everywhere, and you've got traffic in the car park. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the precedent.
I mean, it's a great idea, but
lot to be worked out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Judd. Just
I can share the concern about being a precedent, and you may end up having sort of request to have market stalls and everything out there. And I think I'd just like to see it as a trial for this year, and maybe just go from there.
Thanks, Councillor Judd. That probably would make sense, actually. Now, is yours on to speak?
Yes.
So would you like to comment on what you've heard thus far, Madam Acting Director?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I would be quite supportive of the trial, if that's council's wish. So I have in the recommendation that any applications, they would have to be by request and then with the approval of council. So businesses couldn't just turn up there and set up their shop. They would have to have prior approval. So in that way, council would be able to limit the number, and it would be a first in best dress basis. And if we consider that there would be too many and going beyond what would be considered reasonable, and we've given an indication of an approximate area where that could occur, and beyond that is probably too many. But
So reasonable trial period
reasonable trial
would
period
be what, 6 months, 3 months?
Summer.
What's
I
6
think
months?
six
would be
months I think
reasonable?
is
Yep.
reasonable.
Yep. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, but I wouldn't like to see more than one food operation out there at a time. And I think it needs to be kept to local businesses and not someone coming over from Cootamundra or West Wyalong out there to take revenue out of the town.
Yeah, good point, Councillor Smith.
And I just think we should keep it as a local thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. It's a very good point. It just seems like it's almost to the point where we maybe need some protocols and framework around that. To be frank, I mean, again, maybe that comes after the trial. But then if we have others, if this motion is passed, if we have others, then there needs to be some sort of policy framework that will help guide council staff too. The General Manager, do you have a comment on?
No, I don't, Mr Mayor, but I agree with you. I mean, at the end of the trial, it may be that if there's a lot of demand for it, you may have market days out there, you know, where people can come in or something like that. But it's a matter of seeing what happens over the next few months, I think.
Yeah, thank you. The Deputy Mayor.
Well, now, I'd like to add a fourth point to that recommendation, and that the 6-month trial period.
So we review it after a 6-month trial period. Okay, is a second to Councillor Slay, happy with that? Thank you. So, councillors, we have the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Slay have moved the recommendation on page 261 that we support the request for pop-up shop to operate Lakes and Tenere ancillary to the operation of the mobile food van. 2, we advertise if other businesses are interested in operating a pop-up shop at the same time, that this is supported by council by request with written council approval. 3, that confirm that only requests from locally based businesses within Temora Shire will be considered by council. And 4, the additional point that this be reviewed after a 6-month trial period. So mover and second are happy. Further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Let's go over to page 262, 12.5, the Temora Recreation Centre, the Acting Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this was an outcome that came from the Access and Equity Committee's most recent meeting in relation to the situation with the hoist for the heated pool. So there's a couple of options there for council, and it's there for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Now, just a question to the Acting Director. In relation to funding for one or the other, I can't remember, was the General Manager suggesting that perhaps it could be a possible project for round 4 of the Stronger Country Communities Fund, but however, we haven't received any guidelines.
That's correct.
As I understand it.
Yeah, we haven't received any guidelines yet about what what's possible under that fund.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Councillors, your thoughts? Do you want to?
No, I was only...
General Manager?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was only suggesting that, the recommendation or the implications are there to send it to the budget, because I think this is a very preliminary shot across the bow in terms of there hasn't been a lot of research done on the best product, and I think there'd also need to be quite a lot of investigation and consultation with people in that situation to see what the actual needs of our residents are.
Yeah.
So I think the 6 months would give us that. Or 8 months.
Thank you. The Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it should go to the budget system too at this stage, and then if other opportunities present themselves, we grab them at that point in time. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Oliver. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, on about the middle of the page here, it says robust needs to be a minimum of 150 kilo rated.
Minimum, yes.
Yeah, minimum, not a maximum, but a minimum of 150 kilo rated.
That's a bit of weight.
It is, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. The Director of Administration Finance, being the Pinnacle Community Services under your portfolio, do you have any comment in relation to this matter?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I actually do want to say that I did speak to the Manager of Pinnacle Community Services about the type of hoist that we might be buying, and she did have some concerns around the type of hoist that we got, and just the issues with transferring people from their own personal wheelchair to some type of waterproof wheelchair and back again, that there's risks associated with that. So I would definitely support pushing this forward into next year's estimates so that we can have some time to actually scope out exactly what we need and what would be best. And further to that, in my discussions with the manager of Pinnacle, we also discussed the option that perhaps our surplus from NDIS could contribute to the cost of this as
the
well.
whole cost, you mean?
Contribute to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not
I didn't hear you properly.
So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
No, thank you very much for that information. Well, councillors, we're in your hands. Worth a try. Councillor Oliver.
Well, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll move along those lines that Liz just alluded to then, I think.
The matter will be referred to the budget estimates, 21, 22.
And do a bit of scoping, as they call it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver has moved that way. Seconded, Councillor Smith.
Yep.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Very, very busy Acting Director. Excuse me. Page 268, 12.6. The addendum to the Access and Equity Committee report in relation to tactile ground surface indicators. The Acting Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this is just some additional information that we received in relation to some research the Access and Equity Committee is looking at in relation to the tactile ground surface indicators. There is a modest fee that's involved with this service, but we're recommending that if we were to engage the assistance of Guide Dogs Australia, that there's some particular sites that we would like them to concentrate on, and we've given an estimate of the budget implications for that work.
Thank you. Councillors, your thoughts. Councillor Slay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just looking at the price, it's 195 plus GST an hour for the advice they will give while they're on site, and then there's 120 travel. I'm just wondering, does that 120, is that, oh, sorry, is the time taken to travel from Albury to here going to be another 195 or?
Oh, right, thank you.
I wasn't quite sure, it just seemed a bit funny that.
Yeah, that's the total travel. Thank you, Councillor Slay. The Acting Director, do you have any further advice on that, please?
So we've given an estimate based of $550. So we are expecting that they charge $120 to return to reach their destination, wherever that happens to be in regional New South Wales, and then they charge $195 for their service while they're here.
Okay. So, so we think that is obviously fair and reasonable, Madam Director. Yeah.
Well, yes. Well, even before we were aware of this fee, we actually did even discuss that if the service was free, that council may be of the mind to give a donation, perhaps of a similar amount of money. So we feel that it's reasonable for the level of service that we'd be able to access this specialised area.
Thank you very much. Are you satisfied, Councillor Slay, at this point?
If the Acting Director is satisfied, I'm satisfied.
Thank you. Thank you.
Further, although I think we did discuss at the meeting, though, we may find that it does give us work implications as a result of this, because there may be some changes, but I think if we're trying to improve accessibility within our community, I think the first step is to find out where we are at the moment, and then it may be putting in place some future works that we may work at over time as
funds allow. That's exactly right, and I'm glad you added that, Madam Ring. I think most would be aware of that we'd love to wave a magic wand and fix every issue on this. Access and Equity Committee now seems to be really, really humming, doing some great things, and also they're aware that we do have budget issues, but if we chip away, we will get there. We really, really will. Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Are we saying now that we're paying the $550 that we're not going to give the donation as previously said in the Access and Equity?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Oliver. Other comments or questions, Councillor, in relation to that report? If not, there is a recommendation there for you to consider. Well, yes, I suppose basically that we engage the Guide Dogs Australia for those 2-hour period on those areas listed. Councillor Oliver?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move in that way. I think it's best that we get the professional people who are in this field to address any of those. And another point, do we need to go back and to amend the earlier report with the Access and Equity? We don't need to do that. No, right.
No, this will supersede.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Second for the motion, Councillor Reinhold. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much indeed. Anything further from the Acting Director of an urgent late nature?
I'll just mention one point that I did raise with the General Manager earlier in regards to the health and survey. We may come back to that later on. There's been a request for there's a state government inquiry at the moment into rural health and the implications for that, and there's a request to make submissions next month. And I think that's an area we need to prepare a submission in relation to access to doctors and health professionals in our community.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we will proceed on. And thank again the Director and the Acting Director rather, and the team, stepping up while the Director is on some well-earned annual leave. Let's go to page 270, the Department of Administration and Finance. The audit report to 30 June this year, 13.1. The Director, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So attached is the audit report and an extract of the financial statements as our auditor Brad Bowen presented earlier in the meeting. I'm happy to take any questions. I'd just first like to acknowledge my team who really supported me through the process. It was a pretty crazy time, being a staff member down for over 3 months. So yeah, everyone chipped in. Like, people were sort of performing tasks that were probably a bit outside of their comfort zone, I suppose. Everyone stepped up and it was really appreciated.
Thank you very much for that. And that's just a good reminder for us all to realise when you're down one for 3 months. And I remember talking to the Director up here usually on Sunday morning, and I was just working and just seeing that extra dedication but commitment to duty and to community. It was most commendable. Councillors, your comments, your thoughts, you've heard from Mr Bowen and the Director. It is something that I think we all should be very proud of. And I did ask that question specifically about the unrestricted reserves for a reason, because I just get very nervous, particularly going through these the Boundaries Commission roles at the moment, looking at finances of other councils and so on, and you learn that unrestricted reserves is very important.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the recommendation actually says consider the report, but I'd probably suggest that it needs to say receive and note rather than consider the report.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense. Thank you very much. The Deputy Mayor.
I'll move that way, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So the Deputy Mayor is moving that Council receive and note the audit report to 30 June this year. Seconded, Councillor Reinhold. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? I'd only just add, I know that the Director has warmly praised her colleagues, and we do too as a council and as a community, that we're obviously proud of our Director, who is the leader of that team, but the members of that team who commit so much to council and to our community. We are grateful, and please pass on our warm and deep thanks to them. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion to. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare that motion carried. Thank you very much. Now, councillors, let's proceed to page 291, 13.2, the quarterly budget review. The Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So quarterly budget review is as presented. Just a few minor changes to the operational side of things to reflect, financial assistance grants were paid in advance at the end of June 2020. New grants coming in for local roads and community infrastructure funding, and then the cancellation of Warbirds has had an impact on our budget as well. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Madam Director, just in relation to page 296, in relation to the overspend, you mentioned there before to us that we did overspend on the solar PV system installation. However, that part of that is cancelled out in other areas of savings. The Director.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. So the treatment plant solar installation, so it's about $17,000 over budget. We had another solar project at the Bundawarra Centre, which was actually approximately $9,000 under budget, but contributing also to the treatment plant project being overspent, over budget. The short answer is that there was a change of scope, and possibly our engineering technical manager can elaborate on that if you'd like.
Thank you. The Engineering Technical Manager.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. There's a couple of reasons. One, in the budget it was actually for the recycled water pump station, and When we did the figures, it was more efficient to actually put the solar on the actual treatment plant itself. So I moved, it was a 50 kilowatt system to go on the pump station. We moved to the treatment plant. We increased the size of the system by 10 kilowatts, and it was also ground mounted. And like Liz said, what's in the sewer fund, it'll pay for itself in a bit over 3 years, save council about 18,000 a year. It's a very good job.
Self-praise is no recommendation. No, thank you very much for explaining that. And look, we know that, the overs and unders, as we're all aware, and the money that is saved across several departments. So, we do acknowledge that and we're very grateful for that. But obviously we need to, find these things out. So thank you very much. Further comments or questions? The General Manager.
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, on the current situation. We've got, unprecedented amount of government grants occurring. It does create some challenges, however, because a lot of the government grants is, we talk about overs and unders, but a lot of the grant funding conditions don't provide for unders and overs. So basically, if we put in a quotation, particularly for roadworks, if you're under, we need to refund the amount back to the department. But if we're over, we wear the costs. And that's a very difficult situation. I'm not sure which is the worst, actually, because it's not a good thought to be given money back that you've been allocated. But once the project's finished, that's one of the conditions. But just to let council know that it is quite difficult given the amount of funding at the moment, and no one can estimate to the cent. No. But literally, we have to wear some and give others back. And then there's some flexibility in other programs like the drought funding program, for example. As long as it was one of the other programs, we could move. We could rearrange the deck chairs.
That's
but
right.
A lot of the projects stand alone and we can't.
Yeah, no, thank you for that clarification, but I think we'd feel negligent if we didn't at least draw it to council's attention. So thanks very much for explaining that. Councillors, any other comments in relation to the quarterly budget review? If not, there is a recommendation there on page 291 from the Director that we adopt the quarterly budget review for the period the 1st of July 2020 to the 30th of September of 2020. Councillor Oliver, Councillor Judd, moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Page 303, 13.3, the lease of Crown Reserve to Temora Golf Club. The Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So a resolution is just required from council to renew the lease of the reserve on which the golf club is located. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Director. Councillors, you have a report there on recommendation for you to consider. Deputy Mayor.
I'll move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor has moved the recommendation. Seconder, Councillor Oliver, moved and seconded. Further discussion? If not, I'll put this motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very, very much. Now, pardon me, I'm getting a bit hoarse. Page 305, 13.4, the Temora Antique Motor Club, proposed clubhouse development. The Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this is a follow-up from the August council meeting where staff advised the Antique Car Club that council was willing to prepare a lease on the Pigeon Club land, but we wanted to cover depreciation. So we had some correspondence back from the Antique Car Club, and anyway, we looked into the tenants fixtures concept and ran that past our auditors, and they highlighted a couple of key paragraphs that we'd need to have in a lease agreement so that we wouldn't assume ownership of any shed that they may build on that property. and therefore not incur depreciation. So I've got a recommendation there. Happy to take any questions or recommendations.
Thank you very much. Councillor Slay.
I'm just delighted to see, Mr Mayor, that we've been able to get around that horrible word depreciation. I have a feeling about it.
Exactly.
But that sounds like a great solution, and we come out well and truly in front, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Slay. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I think I'd like to move the recommendation.
Thank you. So Councillor Smith is moving the recommendation. It's on the bottom of page 305. Seconded Councillor Slay. Moved and seconded. Discussion. I'd just like to ask the Director, where did we get this fee of $15? That's been doing my head in. Truly, I
So in the correspondence from the Antique Car Club, they asked for a fee similar to the Pigeon Club. The Pigeon Club are paying $0. The Temora Preschool actually pays a lease fee of $15 per year, so I based it on that.
Okay, no, thank you. There we go. I can now sleep in peace.
Happy to adjust it if you like.
Well, no, and as you say, that makes sense. We've already have another organisation in a similar situation. The Director?
And just through you, Mr Mayor, the issue with the Pigeon Club having a $0 fee payable is it actually doesn't leave much of a trail in our records. There's no financial transaction. There's sort of not a trigger point for us. So at least if you're raising that invoice every year, there's a trail.
Good point. Thank you very much. Councillors, you have a motion before you that's been moved by Councillor Smith and seconded Councillor Slay that we adopt the recommendation, which is that Council draft a lease for a period of 5 years with a 5-year renewal option, incorporating the clauses outlined above, and charge a nominal annual fee of $15. Full stop. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Let's proceed to page 307, 13.5, the Drought Hardship Relief Review, and that's in the hands of the Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So back in October 2019, we introduced a special hardship policy for drought relief for ratepayers, and it was resolved that that be reviewed after 12 months. So I'm just recommending that we now revert to our normal debt recovery policy and the hardship provisions contained within that, which actually provides the same relief measures as that special drought relief package that was introduced. So we won't pursue people for unpaid rates, and there's no interest being charged on rates that are outstanding.
Thank you very much. Councillor Smith.
I'll move the recommendation again. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith has moved the recommendation. That is that Council revert to the application of the relief provisions contained within Council's current debt recovery policy. Seconder for the motion. Councillor Reinhold, you moved and seconded. Further discussion. It's interesting that, you know, we looked during those really tough years, and they were tough years, that only 3 took up that offer, and it just amazes me, and obviously amazes our auditors as well. That's for sure. But obviously everyone's happy to pay their way. Councillors, if there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you, which has been moved by Councillor Smith and Reinhold. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Anything of an urgent, late nature from the Director?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Very good on that thing. Thank you. Councillors, let's proceed now to page 309. Correspondence 14.1. Hearing Australia Bus, the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As read, the hearing bus, it comes quite regularly. They generally go to Paleface Park, and they've requested on the 3rd of December from 10 till 3 usage of that facility.
Thank you very much. The Deputy Mayor.
I'll move that we grant them permission to.
You speak up, we didn't hear.
I'll move that they.
Oh, sorry.
Carter.
Sorry. Make sure you edit that. I did ask for that. Second, so thank you. I heard that loud and clear. Thank you. Councillor Reinhold has seconded the Deputy Mayor's motion that we certainly accede to the request from Hearing Australia. All those of further discussion? All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. It was cruel of me, councillors, because the Deputy Mayor's been up all hours on the hand, so he'll get me back, I have no doubt. Councillors, over to page 311, 14.2, event application, the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Non-pecuniary interest.
Thank you. Councillor Judd flagged his interest before. Thank you, noted.
Yes.
General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is an application from the Area Park Community Projects for their annual Christmas tree. The cost to council for this event for a little bit of setup and some advertising is $1,100.
Thank you. Councillor Slay.
Move that we accept that.
Thank you. So Councillor Slay is moving that we accede to the request of the Area Park Community Projects Committee for their annual Christmas tree, what do I call it? The annual Christmas tree event. Councillor Oliver, you have seconded the motion. Thank you. Further discussion? If not, I will put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, over to page 312, 14.3, another event application, the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is the New Year's Eve celebrations. This year they're moving it to the Recreation Centre and the bodies around that, Lions Park and Callaghan Park. The cost to council is listed below there, the hire of the small stage, the temporary lighting improvements and application fee. You also note that there's a figure in the, or there's a profit and loss account statement we've attached, which shows that the event itself will run at a profit because people will have to pay to enter the pool, and they're the estimates there. So the labour costs will be covered by pool entry fees.
Do we just bill TBEG for that and then they pay that account?
No, they're asking council to assist with $714.
Yes, but the staff costs aren't included in that, as I understand it.
No, the staff costs are on the other side of the agenda, which will be covered by entry fees.
Okay, so we're not billing them at all. We just engage our staff. We pay our staff.
That's correct.
Right.
And our total cost will be $714.
Okay. Righto, thank you. The Acting Director of Environmental Services.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. So just speaking further with the Environmental Health Officer this afternoon, that we would need to work with this group to have a COVID-safe plan for the event, but the restrictions seem to change every day. That there's another easing of restrictions today, that more people are allowed to sing and Christmas carols, and so they are variations that are coming and going all the time.
I had to keep that.
So we will need to work with the group to manage the number of people so that we can meet whatever the COVID safe requirements are at the time. We obviously getting closer, we'll have to sort of fix a date and say this is the maximum number of people that we can have in this space, and manage that so that council is not in breach of the restrictions at the time by having too many people in at one place.
Thank you, Madam Acting Director. I actually would have thought that would have been just automatic, that they would have ensured that they had a COVID-safe plan in place. But obviously, we're on the job.
Yeah, we will, and yeah, so I'm not familiar exactly with the previous event as well, but I'm sure we'll be able to work with Councillor Judd if there's a gathering of people at any time associated with the Christmas tree.
Well, that's a good, that's a very good point. I suppose we've taken it for granted that it'll all be, as you know, subject to COVID-safe plans. So, if council can just indulge me, please, and if we do go back, I think it's appropriate that we do include in the recommendation or the motion that we've resolved for this that we accede to the request, subject to COVID-safe plan. The General Manager, your advice on that?
My personal view is that it doesn't need to be in the motion. I think it's a given that they'll need to have a COVID-safe plan for any event. But the problem is you can't prepare them in advance because they change weekly. So, at the moment though, we're asking all groups, anyone who's using council property, to provide the plan prior to the event going ahead.
Thank you. So therefore, we don't need to be, specifically, we assume that, yes, all events must have a COVID-safe plan if they're on council property. Yep, thank you. Councillor Judd.
Could you just clarify which committee is actually organising this?
I understand it's the, see here, it's the Promotion Visitation Committee. Actually, that's a good point. It's the
defunct committee.
Yes, it's the Temora Business Enterprise Group, so that's a good point. Thanks, Councillor Judd. So if we can just amend that to, please, to Temora Business Enterprise Group. We thank them for taking up the mantle if this is approved, because remember Mrs. Casey and her team conducted it before, and just remarkable how well supported it was, and didn't cost council a heck of a lot at all. So, councillors, are we all clear where we're at in this space? It is TBEG that are requesting council support in relation to this event and seeking permission. I think it's great that they're looking at other, because that location is beautiful. Callaghan Park, Lions Place, the rec centre, just absolutely beautiful. Councillors, what's your wish? The Deputy Mayor.
I'll move the accede to their request.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Reinhold. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Reinhold.
I've lost my train of thought. I think they wanted to, normally they have it up at the railway, but because of COVID they thought having it at the pool, it's a gated, and
Yes.
selling tickets to the event, you're letting people in,
Yeah.
so you know your numbers.
Yep.
I think they've, a lot of thought's gone into it, so.
Yes. Now that's very good. Thanks, Councillor Reinhold. I still think, even regardless of that, I still think it's terrific that we're showcasing our other locations. So, thank you. The Deputy Mayor is okay. Is doing well. The Acting Director.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. So it's just the area around Callaghan Park that we will have to manage the number of people in there. So obviously we don't want to have 7,000 people all trying to sit in Callaghan Park at once. We'll have to limit the number of people there, and we'll have to work through about managing the number of people, social distancing, and placing limitations on how many people are there at one time. And we'll have to work with TBEG to finalise how that can be managed safely.
No, 100% correct, Madam Director, and that's something that if this resolution is passed, that, and I know Councillor Reinhold and all of us in this chamber, and I think our community will appreciate that it will be obviously ticketed event, restricted as per the COVID safe or the public health orders of the day, and just to make sure, because our community's safety is number one, as we all know. So thank you very much. The General Manager.
Just to mention how much they are changing the way that we go about it. As of Monday, I don't know if you're aware or not, but paper-based registration is no longer acceptable. It has to be digital by law. So businesses that have paper-based registration at the front won't be able to do that. They're going to have to provide some sort of online registration, whether that be by mobile phone or by an iPad or something similar.
I didn't know that. Wow. Okay, thank you. As I say, it is changing all the time, councillors, and I don't know how our staff, let alone us, keep up with it. Anyway, it's been moved and seconded that we accede to the request of the Temora Business Enterprise Group in relation to the New Year's Eve celebrations and, of course, with the relevant COVID-safe plan in place. So if there's no further discussion, we'll put that to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you, councillors. Well, I understand Wagga City are not having their celebrations, and again, they had to make a call, I suppose, at the date, and yeah, it must have been a tough one, but if we can do it, that'd be good.
In fact, Mr Mayor, the Office of Local Government has released today, I haven't read it yet, but released today major event requirements for New Year's Eve and various other occasions, Christmas, New Year's Eve. So that's something that I assume most people, most councillors are on the Office of Local Government and Local Government New South Wales mailing list. You'll find that one today.
Thank you very much. Councillors, let's go to page 314, 14.4, another event application, the General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. This is Anzac Day, a very important occasion in the community. As you can see, the fee or the cost to council there is $1,640. It's been council's practice in the past to meet the full cost of that. I should also mention that this year, next Anzac Day, we have our new disabled Portaloo. And I think the contract's been let. If it hasn't, it's very close to being let for the paths and the enabling infrastructure for that. So that will be available at that event.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
I'll move that we accede to their...
Thank you. Councillor Oliver is moving that we accede to their request. Councillor Slay, you have seconded the motion. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? If not, Councillor Smith.
I think the disabled portable loo will be a great contribution because there's a lot of elderly people in that situation.
Yeah, that's true, and even for little ones as well that are, no doubt, might be needing to, that's right. So it has been moved by Councillor Oliver and seconded Councillor Slay that council accedes to the request of the Temora Anzac Day Committee for their 2021 ceremony, and let's hope and pray that we can have one like we used to post-COVID. So if there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Over to page 315, 14.5, the Planning Panel nomination, the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is the regional planning panel, our planning panel, and we have two nominations currently, Mr Donoghue from Coolman Shire and Councillor Judd. And as it mentions there, they've both indicated their willingness to be renominated, so it's just a rubber stamping of that proposal that we nominate those people.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Councillor Judd, you wish to reiterate your enthusiasm to be renominated?
Yeah, this is getting more to do, actually.
Yeah, that's right. Put you to work.
I think we've one DA in 4 years.
Yeah, wow.
It's a $25 or $30 million limit before you brought into it.
Yeah. Thank you, councillor Judd. Councillor Slay.
I move that the two names be put forward for renomination. Mr. Tony Donoghue and Councillor Nigel Judd.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, you've seconded the motion. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I will put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. And well done to Councillor Judd and Mr. Donoghue, and may they be earning their earning their honorarium. Councillors, let's proceed over to page 317, still in correspondence. Well, Mr. General Manager, there's three similar, 14.6, 14.7, 14.8.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. If council would like to move the three of them, we'll deal with those and fix those up separately.
Thank you. Councillor Reinhold. So you're moving the adoption of motions 14.6, 14.7, 14.8, which are the annual donation that we give to our schools, which has happened for many, many years. Second to Councillor Oliver. Those schools that we have before us, Temora High School, St Anne's Central School and the Area Park Central School. And I am accepting that motion for those three. Thank you. Further discussion? I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. We obviously, council, we don't normally like to do this. We know our sister city, Randwick, love to do blocks to get through their business paper, but I'm proud of this council that we consider every issue on its merits. We go to page 323, 14.9, the Sport Aircraft Association, the General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is quite an interesting one. It relates, as you can see, they are seeking sponsorship, but the beneficiaries of this, Temora High School is one of the major beneficiaries in that they're doing a build of an aircraft, which I think really sort of interfaces nicely with what we're doing out at the aerodrome, and so it's for council's consideration.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Slay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would strongly recommend that we consider the request, that we grant the request. I would point out the difficulty in which this report has been presented. We've got resolution 14.9, and I came across this word empennage. I went to 3 dictionaries before I could find the meaning, then came back having found the meaning and read the next page where they spell it out in no uncertain terms. So if ever you're lost for a word in a council document, turn over to the next page. But I think that it's an excellent idea. The whole concept is very, very exciting, and it's typical of the sorts of things that are happening at the moment up at the high school, looking above and beyond what we can do for our students up there. So it's great work. I move that we grant the $200.
So how much would you...
Sorry, I move that we grant the... Where did I get the money from?
The only figures that was mentioned in the report, I think, Councillor Slay, was the $500 for
yes, that was it,
placing a decal on the aircraft.
So that's that was just a suggested figure, but that I'm sure receive anything gratefully, I would have thought. Councillor Slay?
I would move that we make an appropriate donation. I'm sorry, I missed that point.
So you're not putting a specific figure? You originally, I think you said 250. There's 500 written in here. What's your wish?
I think because it's such a creative program, I think I'd probably go the whole lot of the 500.
Righto.
Thank
you.
There we go.
Thank you, Councillor Slay. So Councillor Slay is moving that we accede to the request with the sponsorship donation of $500. Seconded, the Deputy Mayor moved and seconded. The Deputy Mayor has seconded that. The Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, just reading the letter here, so initially it started out to be a full plane, or what I understood. Now it's only the tail plane. which is, end of the day, it's probably not going to be as exciting for the students, but it still gives them a good insight into
Aviation.
aviation or how building planes. And
Yeah.
the other thing is too, I think we've got some pretty experienced kit plane builders here that probably could be used as mentors to these kids too.
Very true, Mr Deputy Mayor, very true. Councillors, you have a motion before you, moved by Councillor Sloan, the Deputy Mayor. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question without notice to the Director of Finance.
Yes.
We have a budget amount set away for
Donations budget,
and
yes.
stuff like this. We must be, I think it's $20,000, is it?
Yes.
Are we close to the limits on that or not?
Yeah, good question, the Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I didn't check this month, but last month there was only $5,000 or $6,000 in it. So yeah, no, we've still got quite a bit in there. Yeah.
So 5,000 or 6,000 left, or we've spent?
Yeah, we've spent 5,000 or 6,000.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So okay, very good. Thank you. Now that's an important question. Thanks, Councillor Oliver. Further discussion on the motion? If not, I will put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, page 325, 14.10, the Shadow Minister for Local Government, New South Wales, the General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. This Greg Warren, the local government shadow minister, has put this amendment up relating to the Local Government Amendment Pecuniary Interest Disclosure Bill 2020. A couple of minor changes there. They've asked, made it that you have to have the return disclosing interests under the Code of Conduct within 14 days of lodgement. Currently it's 3 months. And then there needs to be a prominent link on the home page of Council's website. Look, to be honest with you, this sort of stuff, I mean, there's already information in place. It's just it appears to me that we're always having council's reputation sort of dragged down by the fact that the implication is that someone's not doing the right thing, and that may be the case in some councils. But the necessity for this, I'm not sold on.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. General Manager. I see what you mean, and I agree with your statements, but I also think it's great that I just think it's great that you've got obviously we've got an active minister and we've got an active, proactive shadow minister for local government. Both of them have been in councils and mayors and deputy mayors and so on. So I think it is good that reaching out to us. However, yeah, I don't think that really is applicable to rural and regional. Anyway, it is great though that, like I would have thought that we'd note the correspondence and we write to Mr. Warren thanking him for drawing our attention to these matters. But that was just my, well, because it doesn't have to, but, I just... Anyway, I'm in your hands, councillors. The Deputy Mayor.
I'm just happy to note the report.
So the Deputy Mayor's moving that we note the report. Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Slay moved and seconded. Discussion. No further discussion. If not, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Mr. Warren has visited the Shire too, and he will be here again. Now let's go to page 342, 14.11, Sacred Heart Parish, the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As requested,
thank you. Excuse me, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Slay is declaring non-pecuniary. Thank you. As affiliation with the parish back to the General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the Christmas Mass that's held in Callaghan Park on the 24th of December, Christmas Eve at 6 p.m. And they're requesting the use of the mobile stage, which is the normal request which is granted by council.
Thank you. I understand the Director, because normally we'd have the cost of, but I understand about $200 for the mobile stage, Director of Finance Administration.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, just a couple of $100 for staff wages, I believe, to install and then remove the stage.
Yep. Thank you very much. I'll go down to the Acting Director of Environmental Services.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and just in accordance with the other previous events that if council supported this, that we would direct the Sacred Heart Parish to work with council in accordance with a COVID safe plan for the event. I know they've highlighted that, but we would ask that they have to have an actual plan, and we would work with them to develop that.
Yep. No, thank you very much. I'm sure Councillor Slay will filter that through also. Thank you. So, councillors, your wish. Councillor Oliver, Councillor Oliver, your move that we accede to the request. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Councillor Judd moved. Seconded the motion. Discussion. No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. I'm surprised that there weren't more that declared non-pecuniary Roman Catholics. Truly. Now, councillors, let's go to page 344, 14.12, CWA Area Park Branch. Councillor Judd is excusing himself from the chamber for the next two items on the business paper, 14.12 CWA and 14.13 Area Park Rural Senior Housing, and he's left the chamber. The General Manager, 14.12.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As written, application by the Area Park CWA for a reduction in rates. It's been council's practice in previous years to provide a 25% reduction on general rates, which in this case is $89.19.
Thank you. Councillor Reinhold, Councillor Oliver has moved and seconded that we donate those fees back. Thank you. Further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Over the page 347 of your business paper, 14.13, Area Park Rural Senior Housing, the General Manager.
Yes, thank you again, Mr Mayor. This is a very similar situation, but it's the Area Park or the Peppers development. And as you can see there, the amount of the rebate or the donation will be $226.55.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, you're moving that we donate that 25% back. Seconder, the Deputy Mayor, moved and seconded. There's usually some action if you're... the Deputy Mayor has seconded the motion and has been moved by Councillor Smith that we do donate 25% of their rate back to the Area Park Senior Housing Committee. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Discussion. Councillor Slay. I understand. Yeah. Well, perhaps in business without notice, you might like to ask for an update. It'd actually probably be handy for us all to be aware of where that's up to. Yeah, no, that would be very worthwhile. Thank you, Councillor Slay. So if there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Councillor Oliver, thank you. Get Councillor Judd back in the chamber. Dear, my throat is dry. Thank you. Welcome back to the chamber, Councillor Judd. During your temporary absence, Council has resolved unanimously to accede to the requests of both the CWA Area Park Branch and the Area Park Rural Senior Housing Project. And Councillor Slade did raise and indicate that he will mention in business without notice to ask you to give us an update on how the senior housing project's progressing in business without notice. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Councillors, next page 351, 14.14, the New South Wales electoral boundary changes. The General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this was something that we had some real concerns about with the electoral boundary review. We were very unsure of how our current seat of Cootamundra would stand up under this, under the redistribution. What's been proposed, I think it's fair to say it's the best possible result we could have got, in that Cootamundra remained pretty well as is, with the inclusion of a bit of Burrawa and a bit of that district out there. So I know our local member is delighted by the proposal and has requested that we lodge submissions in support of what's been proposed, because it's not a fait accompli yet. There'll no doubt be other neighbouring electorates who will be making counter proposals. So it's important that people within the Cootamundra electorate do make that, take the time to lodge the submissions and say what a great result this is for our electorate.
Thanks, Mr. General Manager. Honestly, when you see this already large electorate in its present form, it's very extensive. For then the state member to be that elated that it's now been enlarged even further, it's quite astounding. But she was worried it would be wiped from the map, and I think we all were, if we're being frank. So it's really amazing. The General Manager?
I think too, the other thing, Mr Mayor, is that she's also delighted by the fact that she had hilltops in two different electorates, and now it's all included in Cootamundra. So it's a far more sensible solution, and I think we've all been disappointed in the past by some recommendations of the boundary changes. So this is really good news from our point of view.
Thank you. Here. Councillor Oliver?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. It just makes bloody good sense, doesn't it, really, to have all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't know why they didn't think of it earlier.
That is true. That is true. The Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thanks. While it is good news, at some stage they're going to have to change the criteria, because as the cities keep getting bigger and bigger, you can't keep increasing the size of these electorates. It's somewhere along the line it's got to change, so we're not losing seats and so forth, and it's got to be based more land area or something else anyway. It's just keep going the way it is anyway.
That's a very good point, Mr Deputy Mayor, because I think legislatively there's to be 93 state electoral districts. So therefore, is it my understanding that it has to be an act of Parliament or legislation, whatever, to create extra seats? Is that how it works, or does that recommendation have to come from the from this Electoral Boundaries Commission? Does the General Manager? I know it's a question without notice.
No, I think you're right. It can be changed by Parliament, but the difficulty is, the legislation writes that there's only a degree of sensitivity between the electorate. So, you get this ridiculous situation where you have an electorate that takes in half of New South Wales, and then you've got a square kilometre in the centre of Sydney that's got the same thing. Literally, the member could walk from place to place and see the whole electorate in a few days, whereas out here, some have got to travel hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kilometres just to represent their electorate.
Yeah, thank you. But I think, Mr Deputy Mayor of Council, we're going to write a strong letter of support that probably should form part of the correspondence. Councillor Judd.
You go back and look at the history, go back in the 90s and in the early this century, the Parliament was increased to 99, I think up to 103. I know when it was when it was 99, they tried to make a legislation so that 33 seats were always going to be from the country and 66 from the city. So it was, had that nexus, that was all going to keep it. But then they scrubbed it all and went back to 93 again. So now back on this, population basis again.
So they can do it, is the point. Yeah, Parliament can do it. So anyway, well, councillors, I'm in your hands. But obviously, from what I hear, the Chamber's very pleased to see the draft and should be writing in strong support of that, but further that perhaps we do some advocacy and lobbying in relation to possible changes. The Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I'll move that we write a letter of support to the submission.
Thank you. And did you want included, we were talking about in the...
I really think it needs to be a separate issue.
Do you?
I think you want to be sort of muddy and the water's a bit too much. I think it needs to be supporting this space, but down the track it needs to be,
Okay, thank you. So the motion is second, Councillor Judd.
Can I just add that maybe could we add that we encourage our community to write submissions in as well and support, as well as ours?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think our media, what do you call it, communications officer, that could also do a post and encourage everyone to write. So moved, the Deputy Mayor, seconded, Councillor Judd, that we write a strong letter of support in relation to the draft electoral boundaries for New South Wales and further promote the Temora Shire community to also write letters of support. The Acting Director of Environmental Services.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just adding to that comment, perhaps our communications officer could place something on our Facebook page to make it easy for people to make a submission. I know when we were in danger of amalgamation, I think the volume of letters speaks a lot. So if they get a letter from council, that's fine. But if they got many letters from the community about how much they value our local member, I think that will really help them to see that we need to keep our local member and not be caught up in a bigger area in the future.
No, I think that's very true. Very true indeed. So we do have the motion from the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Judd. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Over to page 353, 14.5, the Rotary Club of Temora, the General the General Manager.
I'll declare a non-pecuniary interest in this one.
Thank you. Councillor Judd has declared a non-pecuniary interest. That has been noted. The Deputy Mayor is in the red.
Thank you.
His microphone, that is.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And gee, there's been a lot of correspondence this month, but this relates to a presentation by the Temora Rotary Club at our Assets and Operations Committee last week, and they've now formally requested we give in principal support to it. And as you can see there, the details of the proposal are outlined as that was the submission we received on the day.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillors, you will, for those that were able to attend, that we had Mr. Wooten and Mr. Cook attend the Assets and Operations Committee to present their proposal of a pedal park, and certainly seemed that the Assets Committee thought, generally speaking, that was something that may be worth pursuing. There's a heck of a lot of further investigation has been noted to happen. I just wondered whether should this, I don't know what the General Manager thinks, I just have this written on my notes, is this something that should be referred to the Community Strategic Plan? Because obviously I think we've just engaged this lady, as I understand it, to go through that process in a very thorough manner.
Mr. Mayor, it could be referred to the plan, to that process, given that it's going to be happening in the immediate sort of future. We have to have the community strategic plan for the new council. So, yeah, it certainly could be included
What is
or
that
referred
lady's
to that.
name that we've contracted?
Karen Legg.
Mrs. Karen
Yeah,
Legg.
she's ex-Office of Local Government.
Oh, okay.
And really good. I think she'll do a sensational job.
Okay. Anyway, that was just my thoughts, councillors, that would probably be a great fit to feed into that process. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. That's exactly what I was thinking too. Would write a letter of in principle support to the Rotary Club. I think it's a great idea, but also included in our strategic plan going forward, I think. That's my thoughts. I will move that way, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So you're moving that the council gives in principle support, and further that it be referred to the community strategic planning process. Thank you. The General Manager, comment?
Just looking at the community strategic planning process, council won't be involved in that. So it would be for Rotary to take that as
Yes.
part of their,
But do you think the motion before what Councillor Oliver is proposing, is that in order that in principle support's not committing us to any dollars or any?
No, I think that's quite appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Seconder for the motion, Councillor Reinhold. Moved and seconded. I thought that was the VB ad. Well, good timing. That the council support in principle the proposal of a pedal park for Temora Shire, and further that we be referred to the Temora Shire's community strategic planning process. There's no further discussion. Councillor Judd.
Oh, the main thing the club is after, just an indication whether council is in support of it so that they can go ahead and do more planning, you know.
Yeah. But I think you'd agree that if it's part of the planning process to be captured in that process, it would give it even more impetus, I would have thought. So.
I'm sorry, Mr Mayor, I'm going to have to leave.
Okay, is everything all right?
No.
No? Okay, well, take care and you're excused.
Sorry.
And take care. What's wrong? Councillor Slay has had to take leave, and we do hope and pray everything's okay in his household. Now, if there's no further discussion on the motion, I will put it to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, let's proceed to page 358. Sorry, I beg your pardon. I forgot to ask the General Manager, is there any urgent correspondence, Mr General Manager?
No.
No, right, thank you. Whoops, thank you. Councillors, let's go to page 358, notice of motion that has been received from a very important notice of motion from Councillor Judd in relation to Burley Griffin Way and Mary Gilmore Way, and I defer to Councillor Judd.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll come back to the motion in a minute, but as most councillors and staff will know, we had a serious accident at Area Park on the 11th of November, Remembrance Day. It's a date that I'll probably remember for years to come again. The Mayor rang me on the following day and asked me how I was going. I said, well, I wasn't going real good because you sometimes hear about, you know, our Vietnam veterans having PTSD. And anyway, on that last Wednesday, we had the helicopter attending the accident at Area Park, and it was going backwards and forwards all afternoon. And I had big flashbacks then that day of going back to June 4, 1994. And I'll give it a bit more history. The Burley Griffin Way in its present location was designed 60 years ago. and that's when it bypassed the village of Area Park. The main road used to come down near the railway line and go up Pitt Street. And so in about 1960 it was relocated to where it is, and we come across two intersections, what I'll call the eastern and western intersections, and they were designed for the time, but as you can see, they were designed for that time, but not for present day conditions. The road is of an east-west direction, which makes it very dangerous in the morning and in the evening. And I'll go back to 1967, when a local farmer was killed in this section out there. I was involved with the Secretary of the Progress Association, Area Park at the time, and we were writing our annual letters to the Temora Shire at the time, concerned about this dangerous intersection. We used to call it the old sawmill corner intersection at the time. And so that was 1967. We made annual submissions to the council of the day for the next 27 years until June 4, 1994, when there was a school bus accident right at the western intersection. And a local 11-year-old schoolgirl was killed. I was involved with the deputation along with the mayor and the general manager at the time, and we went to Sydney, and because it had got Australia-wide publicity, the Minister of the day, Bruce Baird, just told the RTA to fix the intersection, and the intersection was improved. It's not perfect yet, but it certainly was improved. At the time, the eastern intersection was designed as well, with some trying to improve it, but nothing was ever done. For the past at least 10 years or more, we've been making, especially through myself, making annual submissions about the eastern intersection and the urgent need to have a protected pull-off passing lane for traffic wanting to turn right to go into Area Park. As I said before, it's the eastern intersection. It's after a length of well over 1 kilometre straight when you're coming from Temora, or if you're coming down the other way, you come down the hill from the western side, and so vehicles are really travelling, and it's not well signposted, and it's worried me for years. And whenever I go home, I'm watching the rear vision mirror, watching my tail, to see if there's any, especially semi-trailers right on your tail, and so last Wednesday it was really a bad shock, to see those things that you've been warning about for a number of years that could happen and come to pass. And we've been putting in submissions for a number of years, and I'm glad to say and congratulate our engineering department for having done, council's adopted the need for the upgrade there, and our engineering department has done the plans and the specifications for it, and along with the Department for Transport has done their bit, which was passed back in August this year. But we've got no funding to do it. And so my motion today, Mr Mayor, is that we make urgent representation to the Minister and Transport for New South Wales through our local member, Steph Cook, for the necessary funding to have the intersection of the Burley-Griffin Way and the Merrigum Way, which is immediately south of Area Park, upgraded to include a protected turning lane for motorists who are travelling west and are turning right off the Burley-Griffin Way to come into Area Park. Anyway, that's my motion today, Mr Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Judd, you'll move that
Yes,
direction.
that way.
Seconded for the motion. Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Excuse me, the Deputy Mayor.
Only say I fully support the motion. If there's an organisation or business trying to put in some sort of a business with traffic turning off the road now, they've got to have the proper turn off and so forth, and so this should not be any different to that.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Judd.
Unfortunately, in our Shire's case, we've had with Lake Centenary need for a turn-off, the Junee Road need for a turn-off, half the time it takes an accident before something is ever done, you know, and that's, unfortunately, this is the case again.
Thanks, Councillor Judd. Well, I have to say, when we first heard about it, I just remember had Councillor Judd come to mind as far as what he'd been advocating for many years, and when I did ring him, he did sound, he's normally fairly tough, but did sound obviously shaken up, and you've just heard some of the reasons why. So I'm like, I think all of you, that you support this this motion, and particularly emphasis on the word urgent. So that is something that, if this motion is passed, that the General Manager and we will be asking Councillor Judd to accompany us with any delegation to hammer home the important point. I understand further that that individual involved in the accident isn't in a very good state at the moment, which is devastating for all involved. So, there is a motion before you, councillors, that has been presented as a notice of motion. Councillor Judd has moved it and Councillor Oliver has seconded the motion. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. And I again thank Councillor Judd for his leadership in this space, and will continue to push very, very hard on this one. No further notices of motion before us. Therefore, we proceed to business without notice, and we proceed to Councillor Smith.
All is good.
All is good. Thank you. We go to Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do have one, but I will bring it up in confidential regarding the Gidgemung gold mine.
Thank you.
So I'll talk about it then. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Oliver. We go to Councillor Judd.
Councillor Slade mentioned about getting an update on
Oh, yes.
senior housing in Area Park. As you know, we are building two new two-bedroom units at Area Park next to Peppers, which will become part of the Peppers complex. The two units are basically complete now, and our committee has actually been doing the last 24 hours, has been laying turf and that around the lawn areas. And our committee members are probably going flat out at the moment trying to get the water up to trying to keep it going. It's a bit late in the season to be doing, but that's the way it's turned out. So having a lot of little things happening, like trying to get the power on, and you ring up and you put the forms in for get the power on, and they come back and say, well, the units aren't on a plan yet. This is Central Energy said, well, it can't be on a plan till we build them. Oh, look, this is bureaucrats what you got to deal with. So I probably spent 2 hours on the phone this morning, and I'm still not sure whether they understood what's going on. So, but this is what the headaches of being an organiser of a project like this. So. Anyway, it's getting close, and I hope that maybe when your councils come out on the 28th, I might have a look around. It looks pretty impressive already, just how it looks. So hopefully another few weeks, some of our tenants will be moving in. So
That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Judd. I'm sure those that will be at Area Park will love to take you up on that offer and see the progress of that and other projects. Nothing further, Councillor Judd. Thank you. Councillor Reinhold. All good. Thank you. The Deputy Mayor. Business without notice. Thank you, Councillor. I just had a few things. That is, you'll note that the New South Wales Minister for Local Government has happened to find a $56.8 million funding package to, pardon me, for full attendance voting at council elections. So that's very, very good. So therefore, it's not going to cost councils any more for that, we are advised. So let's hope and pray that is the case. And of course, there were some other budgetary issues that were mentioned as well. The pensioner discounts, I think the Director of Admin and Finances noted that there's 78 million to help councils provide pensioner discounts on rates and fees and charges, and they've also found another 33 million to help councils meet the increases of their emergency services levy, which I just hope it's not too exorbitant, because it is honestly getting out of hand, and no one can ever accuse this council or any other rural and regional council that we do not support our volunteer firefighters and so on in the rural fire service, because we do. That's a fact, but we've also got to keep an eye on costs. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, just on that, I just see yesterday that the emergency services, no, I think it was just the rural fire service, had a $150 million increase in their budget this year.
150?
150 million.
Yeah, I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Anyway, we won't have that, Chestnut, but I just wanted to mention that to you, councillors, and also of course, the councillors' Christmas dinner on Thursday, the 10th of December at Diner's Choice restaurants. So those invitations have obviously been sent out, and also, after speaking with the Acting Director of Environmental Services today, indicated that the southern end of Hoskin Street, as Council would know, that we did allocate some funds there to tease out a draft plan for that upgrade to be presented to Council with costings. Obviously, with the opening of Diamonds and Dust, and with what's been scheduled to happen at the Westminster Hotel, etc., that end of the CBD of Temora, it is really, really pumping. So Council looks very much forward to receiving those plans in due course, and consider those plans. So that councils all the business without notice that I had. If there's nothing further, councillors, page 361. Councillors' information paper. Motion to receive that information paper, please. Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Councillor Smith moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillors, any items out of the information paper? Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to congratulate our engineering team and our outdoor staff on the upgrade or the widening of the Maranville Road segment 7. It's one of the best widenings that I've ever driven on. It's just nice, and you can't even see where it's cut in. It's all nice and level, although I did have some doubts as to how it was left when they left it a bit proud. I thought this is not going to be very good, but
you're showing us.
But since the tar's gone on, it's been absolutely excellent. So one of the best I've seen.
Close the door.
So if you could pass it on to your appropriate people. I know Vimal's not here at the moment, but he played a very big role in that, I believe. So a controversial role too, I might say, with the gravel, etc. But now whether that was the difference or not, I don't know. But a really good job though. So.
Thanks, Councillor Oliver. It's great to hear that, and I'm sure that the technical engineering manager will pass that on to the team. And yeah, thank you for sharing those views. Any further items of the information paper? If not, Now, in accordance with section 10A of the Local Government Act 1993, I advise that there are several matters that are deemed confidential, and accordingly I require a motion to have those matters considered. Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. The Deputy Mayor moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please. Thank you, Council. We resume into open council. I now advise the meeting that Council has the following motions to be formally adopted, which has been brought in from closed session to open session. Yeah, thank you. Presentation in relation to the ban notice, resolution 232-2020, on the motion of the Deputy Mayor and seconded Councillor Oliver. It was resolved that the juveniles previously banned from council facilities be permitted to attend organised sporting competitions organised by peak bodies under parental supervision for the existing ban period, and further, any breaches of this ban result in a reintroduction of the original ban conditions. 18.1, confidential minutes of the Assets and Operations Committee meeting held on the 10th of November 2020, resolution 233-2020, on the motion of Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Judd, resolved that the reports be received. Resolution 234-2020, on the motion of Councillor Oliver and Councillor Smith, it was resolved that the reports and the recommendations as presented be adopted, and the motion was carried. 18.2, Apollo Place Future Development Workshop, resolution 235-2020, on the motion of the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Judd, it was resolved that Council 1, endorse the draft project brief and expression of interest process; 2, advertise the expression of interest; 3, receive a future report on the outcomes of the expression of interest process; and 4, seek a meeting with the member for Cootamundra to discuss concerns with management of social housing in Temora Shire. And that motion was carried. Can I please have a mover and seconder that all of those resolutions be formally adopted? Councillor Smith, Councillor Oliver moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. And declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any further business? If not, I thank you very, very much for your attendance. Particularly, we do thank the Engineering and Environmental Secretary who has stepped up this week with our Executive Assistant on annual leave. Thank you very much for your efforts in stepping up. And there being no further business, I declare the meeting closed.